Hey, what's going on, guys? UFC Vegas 85, Roman Dolidze versus Nassourdine Imavov just ended, and this is going to be my full card post-fight. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give my reaction and breakdown. Starting off with the first fight of the night, Jamal Pogues versus Thomas Petersen. Jamal Pogues gets the unanimous decision, and what an ugly, hideous fight. This was a horrible fight, where basically you could have gave it 30-27 for Jamal Pogues. I had it 29-28 because the first round, Pogues was winning, but it was kind of close, and Petersen was getting some clinch positions and got a takedown at the end that I thought maybe stole it for him, considering he did some damage towards the end. But then basically the second and third round were Pogues just getting the better of the striking on the feet, landing some good shots. Petersen kept looking for takedowns, but just wasn't able to find them. He would have some success when he would throw his hands, but really it was just Pogues having better striking overall. And I think it was in the second round, Petersen even caught a kick and had it above Pogues' head and still could not get Pogues down. But overall, this was just a super low-level fight that I honestly would never recommend anybody watching ever again. But ultimately, it was the takedown defense of Pogues and the striking of Pogues that gets it done against Thomas Petersen, otherwise known as Thomas Jefferson, according to Dana White's Contender Series announcer. Moving up on the card, we have Marquel Mederos versus Landon Quiñones. Mederos gets the unanimous decision, and this was actually a very controversial fight. I thought you had the first round. I thought clearly Quiñones won the first round. Was landing the better shots, had some clinch control, had a takedown. Second round was very close. I thought maybe Mederos stole the second round, but it was just it seemed like Quiñones kind of ran out of gas in the second round. It was very weird because he was never really crazy gas throughout the fight, but it just seemed like he slowed down. It seemed like Mederos started getting the better of the clinch in the second round against Quiñones. It was a very close second round, but I just barely edged it for Mederos. And then the third round, they were just clinching nonstop. Mederos was getting the better of the clinch, but not really doing any damage, and he was pressuring him. He landed multiple cup shots. Mederos landed multiple cup shots in the third round. Maybe that's what the judges were scoring. But overall, I kind of thought Quiñones did more damage in the third round. But I guess maybe the control time for the judges, maybe that's why they gave Mederos the third round. But overall, I've seen some people saying robbery. I don't think this fight was a robbery. I do think Quiñones probably should have got it 29-28. Honestly, I wouldn't have had a problem with 30-27, but I do think it was a close fight. I do think Quiñones, I know this doesn't really mean a whole lot, but I do think Quiñones is the better fighter. Mederos had his chin up in the air a lot of the times. He was getting clipped with big shots. When he pressured forward, he was doing well, but he was getting backed up. Just wasn't doing that great. And then he was doing okay in the clinch, but wasn't doing any damage. If you're gonna just hold him in the clinch, at least do some knees or something. He was just kind of holding in the clinch, reversing position, just pressing him against the fence, and wasn't really doing a whole lot. So Mederos gets it done via unanimous decision and a very controversial decision. Moving up on the card, we have Stoliarenko versus Luana Carolina. Luana Carolina gets a third round TKO. And she pretty much dominated the whole fight. First round was landing better shots on the feet. She threw a spinning back fist and ended up getting taken down in the first round. And I think the first time she got taken down, she worked her way back to her feet, but then ended up getting taken back down at the end of the round. Or no, Stoliarenko pulled guard at the end of the round because Carolina, when she threw the spinning back fist, she got taken down, but she got taken down towards the fence. So she was sitting near the fence, got up, and then I think right after that, they were in a clinch exchange. Then Stoliarenko pulled guard, had maybe 20 seconds left to go in the round, and then almost had an armbar at the tail end of the round. Couldn't pull it off. I felt like Carolina got saved by the bell. But then in the second round, Stoliarenko looked drunk on the feet, just getting beat up, lots of knees in the clinch. Pulled guard again, but this time she really didn't do anything with it. She got beat up badly by Carolina on her back. And then the third round, Carolina again, winning on the feet. Lots of nasty knees to the body. And then towards the end of the round, you had Stoliarenko pull guard again. She starts looking for a triangle, looking for an armbar. It looks like it's close, but Carolina fights out of it. And then Carolina ends up getting on top. Or I think they got up. Then she ends up taking her down with a hip toss, ends up in the crucifix, and then Carolina just beats her up from the crucifix position and TKOs her in the third round. But yeah, there was moments where Stoliarenko, she might find this triangle, she might find this armbar, but Carolina just kept fighting out of it, slipped out of it, got back to her feet. Stoliarenko gets up, starts trugging forward, drunk again, and just gets hip tossed and brutalized. It was just an ugly performance, honestly, from both of them. But Carolina gets it done. Just a better striker and did okay on the ground. Moving up on the card, we have Bilder versus Jeong. This was a matchup that I've messed up and I picked the wrong person on Tapology. I picked Blake Bilder, but my official prediction was Jeong Lee. And Jeong Lee went out there and did exactly what I thought he'd be able to do. Stuffed the takedowns, land on the feet. Blake Bilder was stalling the majority of the fight. I had a Jeong Lee 30-27. First round, Lee hurt him badly. I think it was when you had Blake Bilder in the clinch and Lee kind of circled out and then landed a knee on the break. Hurt him, started swarming him, even sat Blake Bilder down for a second, but really didn't go for the kill. I think he was kind of conserving his energy. And then that was pretty much the whole entire fight. I mean, even in the second round, you had Lee get a takedown against Bilder, but Bilder was just stalling up against the fence. In the second round, Lee took him down. It was really ground and pound him to the point I thought the ref might stop it. And right as I'm thinking the ref's going to jump in, Lee kind of says, okay, I got to conserve my energy again, and stops throwing. And, I really think he was just managing his gas tank. And then the third round was just kind of more of the same. You had Bilder just looking to clinch. At one point, he looked for like this weird shoulder submission that Sanko was starting to break down, but it never ended up happening. Ends up on his back, gets beat up with elbows. A clear 30-27 win for Jeong Lee. And honestly, not much to say about this fight other than Blake Bilder looked absolutely atrocious and stalled the entire fight, and it was an embarrassing performance from Blake Bilder. Moving up on the card, we have Themba Gorimbo versus Pete Rodriguez. This fight lasted 32 seconds. Gorimbo looked for a takedown early, got stuffed, immediately just moves in, lands a nasty right hand, kind of landed with the wrist. It was basically over at that point. Pete Rodriguez was KO'd, followed up with like 1 or 2 shots, ground and pound. Referee jumps in. Gorimbo with a nasty KO early too. Didn't take any damage. He was apparently predicting first round KO in this fight. And he's saying, I want to fast track to the top of the welterweight division. And I actually love it. I actually love it from Gorimbo. I think what the UFC should do, and I tweeted this out, I think the UFC should book Vicente Luque versus Themba Gorimbo for that Atlantic City main event. We don't have Sean Brady anymore. Gorimbo wants a big jump up in competition. I know people say, Joey, you're always talking about deserving and not deserving. That only really comes when it comes to title shots. The rankings really are meaningless. So I love once in a while. I don't want to see it all the time, but I love when you have an unranked guy who wants to get up that ladder quicker, and I love throwing him in there with like a known top 10, top 15 guy. So I would love to see Gorimbo get a big step up in competition. Pete Rodriguez, bottom of the barrel. So I don't know how much you can really say about this win. I mean, he did go out there and KO him on the feet, where I thought Gorimbo was going to go out there and just out-grapple him. But at the end of the day, I think it's probably the takedown threat that set up that big right hand. But I would love to see Gorimbo get a big shot up the rankings. Bare minimum, let him fight Neil Magny next. Neil Magny just exposed Mike Malott. I would love to see Themba Gorimbo get a big jump up in competition in his next fight. He got it done and brutalized Pete Rodriguez. Moving up on the card, we have Charles Johnson versus Azat Maksum. This was kind of a controversial fight as well. Charles Johnson gets the unanimous decision. Azat was just beating him up badly in the first round. Hurt him multiple times. Hurt him early with the right hand, then almost had a Darce choke. Charles Johnson defended well. Then hurt him again with some other shots, and I think one of them was a knee that he landed. Then dropped him with a jab, but he just never really looked for the finish. I think he was worried about his gas tank as well. And then basically, in the first round, it could have been a 10-8 first round for Azat, to be honest. And then you had Johnson kind of shooting on some desperation takedowns. Never really got close to him. Then the second round was a lot closer. Johnson was landing more shots. Even had a takedown, started looking for a rear naked choke, but Azat was able to scramble out. I believe it was really close, but Azat was kind of digging the hook out. So was able to defend off that. And then I thought Azat did more damage early, right before the rear naked choke attempt, but then you had the rear naked choke attempt. And then like the last 45 seconds after he scrambled out of that rear naked choke attempt, I thought Johnson landed a little bit better shots, and I thought he stole the round in the last like 30 to 45 seconds. And then the third round, and I don't think this was a robbery. I thought Azat probably won, but I don't think it was a robbery. Then the third round, I thought Azat was landing, better shots, got a takedown for a little bit. Johnson started to kind of have a little bit of a resurgence, kind of like midway through the round. Then had a ninja choke at one point up against the fence. And then it looked like Azat started to go out. The commentary team started to mention it as well, but I don't think that's what it actually was. Johnson releases that, and then Johnson was still landing some shots on the feet. Got a takedown, ends up in full mount, and lands a couple ground and pound shots right before the bell. I didn't think that was enough to steal the round. So I had basically 1 and 3 for Azat. And then I also thought round 1 you could give 10-9 or 10-8 for Azat. So I thought it could be a draw if you give 2 and 3 to Johnson. I don't think this was a robbery. I really think that takedown to full mount and those like 3 or 4 ground and pound shots won the fight for Charles Johnson. And somebody commented, I can't remember what video it was, but I talked about how I'm assuming it was my prediction video. I said Charles Johnson's takedown defense isn't that bad because he's been fighting elite level grapplers, so that's why he's been getting out grappled. it showed in this fight. Excellent scrambles, excellent ability to get out from underneath Azat, and just excellent grappling overall in this fight. He's been fighting a lot of killers who were really good grapplers. So Charles Johnson gets it done. Fair play to him. He was on a losing streak. This fight was kind of set up for him to lose against the undefeated prospect, but he gets the win. He gets it done 29-28. I have no problem with the scorecard, even though I do honestly think there's a world where you give Azat 30-27. I would score it 29-28, 1-3. But round 2 was very close, even though I gave it to Johnson. But overall, it was not a robbery. Moving up on the card, we have Molly McCann versus Diana Belbiţă. This was one of my worst picks of all time. This is headlining the prelims. Honestly, these next 2 fights are the worst picks that I've made in a while. Molly McCann just batters Belbiţă on the feet. And, Belbiţă started to have a little bit of success. And then basically, Molly just picked her up, ragdolled her to the ground, beat her up, full mount with elbows. The clock is waning away. There's like 10 seconds left, and she just decides, I'm going to go for an armbar. Goes for an armbar. Apparently, it's not broken. Belbiţă, it looked like she might have broken it. I think maybe she dislocated or temporarily dislocated the elbow. But Molly McCann looked good at 115. They're going to start calling her a title challenger very soon. So at the end of the day, I feel like she was kind of expected to win this, but I thought Belbiţă had improved enough. But it's just that size advantage and that power advantage for Molly McCann. Molly McCann is one of the very few that has power at 115. I know we have some other girls at 115 that have power, but it's not very often that you have to deal with someone that has the power like Molly McCann at 115. Big shots on the feet. Belbiţă just chin tucked and has her arms real high up, still getting clipped up with shots. And then when she starts to have some success, land some body shots, land some punches upstairs, she gets picked up, dumped down. She almost ends up breaking her arm Joe Pyfer style, if you know what I mean, where the way she got taken down. She kind of looked to brace her fall, and she could have hurt her arm that way. But Molly McCann, I have to give it to her. Good fight IQ at the end of the round, because she knows, okay, I only got 10 seconds left. I'm not finishing her with my ground and pound this next 10 seconds, so let me go for an armbar, because it doesn't matter if I end up on bottom or I mess up, because the round's going to end. Gets the armbar literally with like 3 seconds to go. Let's see what the official thing. Yeah, 4 minutes and 59 seconds of the first round. So shout out to Molly McCann. Gets it done and found a new weight class at 115 pounds. And I think pretty soon they'll be calling her a title challenger, even though she's not. Like to see her get a big step up in the maybe top 15 in her next fight. Moving up on the card, we have Gilbert Urbina versus Charles Radtke. MMA makes no sense. MMA makes absolutely no sense. When I watched fight tape on both these guys, I said Gilbert Urbina easily wins this fight. Looked decent against Brian Battle. Looked decent in other fights as well. Recent fights. And Charles Radtke looked like absolute dog shit against Mike Mathetha. And I could tell, I'm sure some of you guys know, let me know down in the comments. How you can watch a fight and like the first 30 seconds, you're like, oh, this guy's going to win. I'm watching the beginning of this fight. I'm like, Charles Radtke's going to win. He gets a first round KO. And Urbina looked completely off. He looked slow. He looked sluggish. He looked unwilling to engage. And basically threw nothing the entire fight. Got hurt badly. Could have been stopped early. Barely survives. Charles Radtke keeps his composure. Doesn't get over aggressive and blow himself out. And then got clipped badly again. I think it was a left hook right on the chin. I can't remember if it was a left or right hook. I believe it was a left hook right on the chin. Puts him down. Just badly finished. Charles Radtke gets a first round KO. That's a nasty win, especially coming off how shit he looked against Mike Mathetha, a.k.a. Blood Diamond. I thought for sure he was going to lose this fight. And Charles Radtke did take a loss tonight. He's actually 1-1 after tonight. He went to the post-fight press conference, and he was telling the media, he was like 1 minute into the post-fight press conference, and he told the media, you guys need to pay me for my interviews. And they immediately everyone stopped asking him questions. His post-fight presser was like 1 minute and 30 seconds. It was embarrassing. I don't know why, he uses one homophobic slur, and now he thinks he's Conor McGregor or something. I don't get it. But that was pretty an embarrassing moment. You can look that up online. He's talking about the media owes him money for his interview. I think maybe one KO wins, getting him a little bit too big for his britches, but overall looked really good in this fight. It's just weird because Radtke looked I guess he just improved. He looked way better than he did in his last fight, and Urbina looked way worse than he did in his last fight. So Charles Radtke gets it done. It does say right here on Tapology, I'm dumb. It was a left hook. Nasty left hook right on the chin, put him to sleep. Good win for Charles Radtke. Moving up on the card, we have Aliaskhab Khizriev versus Makhmud Muradov. This fight ended 11 seconds in. Khizriev poked Muradov in the eye. I thought it was a punch at first. I never even went back and watched the full replay. I just seen the eye poke afterwards. Herb jumps in, gives him time, but he's just not willing to continue. His eye's messed up. Supposedly, he might have a scratched cornea. We don't truly know, but his eye couldn't open. I don't think he was looking for a way out. I mean, we're 10 seconds into the fight, but you could tell immediately the way he took that poke, and it was a nasty poke upon replay, that, you know, he was almost for sure done after that poke, but we really didn't get to see this fight play out. So it's super unfortunate. There's not a whole lot to say about this fight, but hopefully they rebook it. I don't know. I don't know. I guess, Khizriev has had some bad luck, cancellation after cancellation, inactivity, and now he pokes a guy in the very beginning and ends up in a no contest due to accidental eye poke. So kind of disappointing matchup. I was looking forward to that fight. Moving up on the card, we have Natália Silva versus Viviane Araujo. I have a gripe with both of them in this fight. So we have Natália Silva winning via decision. Araujo first round was holding her up against the fence. Got one takedown, but didn't really get any real control time with it. And then the last 20 seconds, she's still holding her up against the fence. Araujo is clearly going to get the round just from control time. And Natália Silva goes wild for the last 15 seconds, landed some good shots, spinning kick to the chin. So I thought Silva stole the round with 20 seconds of 3 to 4 shots because Araujo was doing nothing in the clinch. Then the second round was just more clinching from Araujo. Silva was landing better on the feet. You had a break from Mark Smith finally, Mr. Break happy. Come on, work. Well, I don't know where he was in this fight because he wasn't doing it in this fight that much. But he broke him in the second round. Natália Silva landed the better shots on the feet. And then the third round, also at the end of the first round, you had Araujo land some big shots at the tail end too. So I thought there was a case to be made. Maybe you could say Araujo won just because she landed a couple big shots right at the tail end, right before the bell. But I still thought Silva took the first round. I still thought Silva took the second round. And then the third round, you had Araujo kind of landing some big shots early. Then she was clinch stalling again. And then basically the last minute, Silva came alive again, landed a spinning heel kick. And so I scored all 3 rounds for Silva, but I thought this fight was a disgrace. I mean, Silva, and maybe I'm just judging her too highly, but I think she's very skilled. And there's no killer instinct at all. It just looks like she's leaps and bounds faster than Araujo. And she's just avoiding the fight the entire fight. If Araujo just stood dead center, they would have never even got close to each other because Silva was running the entire fight. And then you had Araujo just clinching up, doing nothing. This is why people hate women's MMA. Fights like this give women's MMA a bad rap. This was a shit fight, to be honest. And Natália Silva did kind of the same similar thing against Andrea Lee. It just looks like Silva has the skills to go out there and bludgeon these girls, and she doesn't. She runs the entire fight and then just kind of lands some good kicks and gets aggressive for 5 seconds here or there. That's it. So honestly, I'm complaining about both of them. I want to see Natália Silva with a big step up in competition in her next fight. And honestly, she needs to work on the killer instinct. There's just no aggression. It's just circling, then 5 seconds of aggression. And it's just kind of disappointing because I've looked at her as a contender since her UFC debut, and it's just the last 2 fights have been super disappointing. Moving up on the card, the featured fight on the card, we have Randy Brown versus Muslim Salikhov. Randy Brown gets a first round KO. Really, you had Salikhov landing a couple low kicks early, or a lot of low kicks early. You had Brown landing the jabs. Then there was an eye poke. And Salikhov was able to continue. It was actually almost a double eye poke by Brown. And then you had Brown with a 1-1-2. Pump the jab. I think the first one landed, second one missed. Then boom, came with a straight right. And it didn't even look like it landed that hard, but it kind of came down, hit the forehead, then the nose, then kind of the chin a little bit. And just absolutely slept Salikhov. And he wasn't even going to follow up, but the ref didn't jump in. So then he threw one shot for good measure, and it was over. I mean, Salikhov was completely out. It was done. Great performance by Randy Brown. We didn't get this. I mean, the fight was... How long was the fight? The fight was 3 minutes and 3.5 minutes. I actually thought it was shorter than that. I thought it was about 1.5, 2 minutes. But Salikhov, old. He's just old. And, he was chopping the legs, but the length of Randy Brown, the length of Randy Brown was just too much for Salikhov to handle. Just too much for him to handle. Randy Brown had some good teep kicks in this fight, some good jabs, and then eventually used the jab to set up the straight right and just finish Salikhov with a nasty right hand. And good solid win for Randy Brown. And this was a fight that was supposed to happen last month. So Randy Brown says he wants a top 15 opponent next. Would love to see it. Moving up on the card, we have the co-main event, Renato Moicano versus Drew Dober. This was a whirlwind of a fight. I felt like it was people called this fight boring. I didn't think this fight was boring. But this fight had some momentum swings. You had the first round. Dober was landing good shots early, stuffing some takedowns. Then Moicano got him down, controlled him, beat him up for the rest of the round. Had decent ground and pound. Dober, like almost scrambled up twice where he got the feet on the hips, but like he started to maybe get to his feet and then Moicano would tackle him right back down. I thought first round was clearly Moicano. Second round, Moicano got an early takedown and it's looking like, okay, Moicano's going to dominate him in the grappling. Had some good control time, had some decent ground up, and you had Mark Smith clapping the whole damn fight. Mark Smith doesn't know when to shut his fucking mouth and he drives me nuts. He's like, work, 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 when Moicano is clearly working. And meanwhile, the women's fight early when they were clinching nonstop wasn't doing jack shit about that. But anyway, Moicano controlling him in the second round, beating him up. And then Dober almost gives up his back. Kind of does give up his back, but he scrambles out, ends up on top, and then ends up getting back to his feet. Moicano kind of rushing forward, looking for a takedown. And you have Drew Dober just look for a lateral drop, slam Moicano on his head, and then beat him up for the rest of the round on top. And I thought that was enough to steal Dober the round. It was at the tail end of the round. He got the slam and a little bit of ground and pound, and Moicano was busted up. But I didn't go back and rewatch this. I didn't check it. I thought there might have been a head clash, and Mark Smith apparently signaled head clash. So I thought there's maybe a case you could give Moicano still the second round, even though that drop, he landed right on his head. It looked like it did a lot of damage, but there was a head clash potentially right before that cut him open. So I think round 2 is up for kind of debate, but I think most people, and I think even the judges, once we got the scorecards, had round 2 for Drew Dober. I didn't look at the specific scorecards. But then you had round 3. It looks like the momentum's heading in Dober's favor. Dober's kind of plotting forward, throwing big shots, landing some shots. And then Moicano clinches up again, looking for the same trip takedown. Drew Dober looks for that same kind of lateral drop. And Moicano counters it, ends up on top, and just ends up beating up Drew Dober in the third round. And Drew Dober just didn't have the ability to get up. So you had Moicano control him in the third round, the majority of the third round, beat him up. It was a massive mistake for Drew Dober to try that again. He should have just tried to fend off the takedown and just get back out the space because he was doing well. He was doing very well. So ultimately, Moicano, I had it scored 1-3 and round 2 for Drew Dober, but I think that's what the judges ultimately had it too, 29-28. Moicano just out-grappled him. It was too much on the ground. Was never really able to get the full mount. Was pretty much in half guard. And Drew Dober did have some moments where he was trying to scramble, but Moicano would keep chest pressure, keep control. And then when Drew Dober tried to scramble out, he would just immediately re-cement the pressure and re-cement the control. And then when he had him kind of controlled for a minute, he would open up, land some shots. The ground and pound wasn't crazy, but there were some points where, I think even in the third round, like the last minute, Moicano's throwing big shots from the top. Even one shot I thought he was going to finish Dober with. He landed so hard, a ground and pound shot. And you still had Herb Dean or Mark Smith going, work, work. I think it was Mark Smith, right? Work. And I'm like, what is he doing? What are you doing right now? He's literally smashing him badly. So Moicano got the win, 29-28, and just out-grappled Drew Dober. Moving up on the card to the main event, we have Roman Dolidze versus Nassourdine Imavov. I've been saying Imavov this whole time, but now tonight they're saying Imavov, so I don't even know. Anyway, Imavov, which I'm going to call him now because I think that's what I've been calling him, wins. It was a clear win, but let me pull up these scorecards. And then we're going to talk about the round where we had the illegal kick. We had the illegal head kick in this fight. So, or actually, hold on. We'll talk about the scorecards in a second. So basically, you had the first round. Imavov almost finishes him. Hurt him badly. Was beating him up. Hurt him with a right hand. Swarmed him on the ground. Hurt him badly with the knee to the body, and then just smashing him on the ground. Then the last second looks for an armbar. I had round 1, 10-8, clear as day. Round 2, Imavov just outstriking him. Both guys are kind of tired in the second round. Dolidze just clinching and doing nothing, throwing big shots. I thought Imavov clearly won the second round. Even towards the end of the second round, landed a couple big right hands. Third round, kind of the same thing. Dolidze just clinching, Imavov outlanding him on the feet. Landed a head kick in the clinch. They're in the clinch. Dolidze kind of gives up his back, and Imavov lands a head kick from that position. Very, very weird position. Then lands a nasty knee to the body as well. Clear 10-9 round 3 for Imavov. Then round 4 is where you have the illegal kick. So throughout this entire fight, I think he did it 3 or 4 times. They'd be in the clinch. Imavov would work his way to Dolidze's back and then kind of have a back body lock and then release it and throw a head kick immediately. Well, in the 4th round, Dolidze was in that position, had recognized that, and had a hand down. And the rules kind of wonky, one hand down, weight bearing, not weight bearing. And I thought it was pretty clear, and I even said on my live stream, don't head kick him here. He immediately head kicks him right to the forehead, nasty head kick. The fight gets stopped by Herb Dean. And meanwhile, while he's tending to Dolidze, You have Chris Curtis and him going back and forth in the corner, and Imavov's all, acting crazy, and Herb's telling him, I'll DQ you. Go over here. I'll DQ you. And then finally talks to Dolidze. I thought for sure there's no way Roman continues. No way Roman continues. He does continue. So ultimately, round 4, I still had Imavov winning because Dolidze did no damage. But because of the point deduction in that round, because of the illegal head kick, which hopefully they get rid of that rule. At this point, it's just causing too many problems, Should be 2 hands. The weight-bearing thing is too subjective, and you got people taking advantage of it. I don't want to see it anymore. I'm tired of it. And you have round 4, I scored it for Imavov. So with the point deduction, you have it 9-9. So that's a tied round. Then round 5, Dolidze's pulling guard, looking for leg locks. And, Imavov's landing good elbows as well. Oh, he landed a nasty elbow. Dolidze, it was after he kind of rolled and pulled guard. He was kind of in a double leg position, but on his knees. And Imavov threw a nasty elbow like Alex Pereira did against Yuri Prohaska. Hurt him badly. Thought he could have finished him, but Imavov was just too tired. Didn't really go for the finish there. Now, as far as the scorecards, Derek clearly is the only one with a good scorecard, which was 49-44 for Nassourdine Imavov, which is a clear scorecard. I mean, you have every round for Imavov. Round 4, you use the point deduction, so it's a 9-9. And round 1's a 10-8 for Imavov. Then you have Saul D'Amato, who had it 48-46 for Imavov, but has round 2 for Dolidze. I don't know how you have round 2. I mean, it was kind of the closer round of the fight, the closest round of the entire fight, but still, Dolidze was doing nothing the whole fight but clinching, basically. And then you have Ron McCarthy, who I believe is the son of Big John McCarthy. Fire him immediately. Fire him immediately. This is the worst scorecard ever. So first off, round 1, he has 10-9. Round 1 is a clear 10-8. It's not even up for debate. Then he has round 2 for Dolidze, which is just crazy to me, but okay, Saul D'Amato had it, whatever. So 2 of them have round 2. Then he has round 4. Round 4 for Dolidze as well. So that's a 10-8 round for Dolidze because of the point deduction. I just don't get it. There's in no world do you give round 4 to Dolidze, and in no world, in my opinion, do you give round 2 to Dolidze, but okay, maybe round 2 because there wasn't a whole lot of action, but I still think Imavov clearly won round 2. He had it 47-47 a draw. Imagine watching that fight with someone who doesn't understand scoring, doesn't understand the rules at all, just watch that fight, and you're like, yeah, this was a tie. This was a tie. Imavov beat the brakes off of him. And if Herb Dean would have stepped in and stopped it in the first round, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And I think Herb should have stepped in and stopped it. Dolidze took a lot of damage in this fight. I mean, got battered on the feet, got battered in the clinch, got battered on the ground, took a lot of knees to the body. Dolidze's chin is unbelievable, but this fight had to take years off his life. The entirety of the fight was basically Dolidze clinching up. When he wasn't clinching, he was just throwing wild hooks, never really coming close. He landed a couple spinning techniques, but outside of that, and even those weren't super powerful. And the only reason I think Imavov didn't look better in this fight, because I think a lot of people are going to shit on Imavov's performance, I think he just gassed himself out a bit in the first round. Outside of that, if Imavov came in and just conserved his energy and didn't look for that finish, which obviously he's going to be aggressive, he hurt him badly in the first round. But if he didn't do that, then I think he just outclasses him for 5 rounds, 50-45, easily. So I think Imavov, I give him a little bit of a pass for kind of looking like shit and being kind of gassed, because he did throw a lot of shots in that first round. It would have been stopped by other refs for sure. So I don't know how Ron McCarthy has 47-47. The dude is delusional. Somebody slap him. Somebody slap Ron McCarthy, because he could have ruined this. Imagine Saul D'Amato had the same thing. We got a draw somehow. That would have been straight up delusional. But basically, Dolidze's just really good on the ground, really good jiu-jitsu, really good scrambles, but he doesn't have great wrestling, doesn't have good takedowns. So it's like, how does he get you there? He's got to pull guard sometimes, or you got to take him down like Jack Hermanson did, and he found out real quick. So Nassourdine Imavov looked incredible in this fight. There was a couple moments where Dolidze looked like he might have him in trouble with maybe a leg lock or something, but Imavov was able to scramble out, able to reverse position, able to get out of the position, even had some moments on top as well. And I think he even had a takedown in this fight as well and got on top for a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. But Nassourdine Imavov, clearly the better fighter. I know he kind of looked like shit because he was gassed out, but that was because of his aggression in the first round. He gets it done. It should have been Derek Clearly's scorecard, 49-44. So let me know what you guys think. I did kind of horrible in this card. Not really that horrible. I believe it was 7-5 on this card. Yeah, I went 7-5-1 on this card. So the picks weren't that great. Got the majority of the main card. I got the entire main card, except obviously no contest, so that doesn't count. So basically, except Urbina, right? But this was a weird card. It wasn't that great of a card. It was kind of a shitty card. It wasn't that exciting. The main event obviously delivered. The co-main was good. I think people were overhating it. And then obviously, the main card was decent in general. So it wasn't that bad of a card. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. What did you think? Did you think Dolidze should have took the DQ from the head kick? Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.